Well, welcome everybody to week 2 of the February online program for the alumni of the Sunshine Coast Health Center. And the February program's theme is how to learn to live comfortably in the gray areas of life. And this is very good for recovery. So last week we talked about the idea of where this feeling of the need to control comes from. And we talked about that basically it was rooted in fear and fear of being hurt. And so that we have this compulsion to try to control people, places, and things around us. And that way, if we can control the world around us, then there'll be no surprises and won't get hurt. But one of the tricks to recovery, one of the keys to it, is to learn to live comfortably in a world which you don't get to control. That the world will just go on. People will do what people do, and things happen just the way they're going to happen, regardless of whether I want them to or not. They're going to happen anyways. Okay? So how do you live comfortably in that world? And this is a trick, and this is one of the toughest things for people in early recovery to figure out. Anyway, one of the techniques you can use then is to, when you feel yourself getting frustrated because things aren't working out the way you want or people aren't doing what you want to do, the trick is step back and think about it. Reflect upon what's going on. So here's an example. We see this all the time. So some client's on the phone and he gets into a big argument with his lover and he slams down the phone, right? And then he starts pacing about and then back to the phone, and 2 minutes later and phone's up and another argument, slam the phone down, and do this like about 6 times. And I'll ask them, well, what are you doing? And they'll say, well, I got to get this resolved, right? Like there's some big panic if he doesn't get it resolved like in the next 20 minutes, that, oh my God, everything's over, right? Anyway, I sit down and talk with the guy, and it turns out, he's just having a typical argument with his lover that he's had like for the last 3 years, right? And to point out to him that maybe there is no panic here, that maybe the best thing to do would just to give his lover a break, right? Maybe a day, maybe a week, right? But the thought of that, oh my God, I can't do that. I mean, we've heard lots of clients say, well, if I don't get this resolved right now, it'll ruin my whole day. And comments like this are fairly common. So the trick is, I wonder what would happen with these clients, and I know our phones would certainly survive a lot longer than they do, if he could just sit back and start asking himself, well, how important is this really? Like in 5 years from now, is this going to have any impact on my life? What need do I have to get this resolved immediately? And when clients start reflecting on that kind of stuff, then they generally come to the conclusion, well, maybe there isn't such a big panic, and maybe the best thing that they could do is actually give it a break and just be in the gray area for a while, because there is no panic. There's no absolute reason why it has to get done. Right? Things like that. Maybe it's tax time and you're working out your taxes and you're going to get a big rebate, but the problem is you don't know how to figure out this box. So you phone up Revenue Canada wanting to get an answer, and of course it's tax time, so you're going to be on hold for a long, long time, right? And a lot of people in early recovery, they'll blow a gasket, right? Because things are not working out the way they should. Revenue Canada should have more operators answering the phone because I want an answer, right? But realistically, it's not going to happen, right? So a much more constructive way of approaching it is just to sit back and think about, okay, well, I guess I'm kind of stuck. Maybe, maybe they got a callback number. I can just sit around, watch TV until they call me back or something, right? This stepping back and reflecting, what it does is it gives you some distance, because if you are what I affectionately call a control freak, then chances are this has become a habit, almost a knee-jerk reaction. I got to get stuff down immediately. And if you can step back, what you do is you give yourself some distance and some time to actually think, right? So it's not a knee-jerk reaction anymore. And if you can think about it and reflect on how important it really is, it'll generally come to you that most things in life are not big panics. And that there is absolutely no necessity that things get done right away or things get fixed right away. Okay? So that's the first technique that we'll give you. This idea of stepping back and just reflecting on things. And this happens all the time, by the way. I mean, if all the fellows at Sunshine Coast would do exactly as I wanted them to, like, my life would be a lot easier. Right? But lots of times they don't. They're missing group to do this, or they're on the phone, or doing all these things that drive me crazy. And even I have to pull back and think about it and say, well, really, how important is this in the big picture? So it takes practice. At any rate, that's this week's online program, and so we'll see you next week.